Hi, I'm John Falchicchio, Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development, and welcome to this week's DMPED Weekly Recovery Check-In. Today we're going to start a series of engagements around Mayor Bowser's Fair Shop budget. So as you know, Mayor Bowser presented the budget last week to the council in a press conference, and tomorrow she'll actually speak to the council about the budget and really get their questions as well. But we wanted to make sure that you knew all that was in the budget this year. And so over the course of the next few weeks, we're going to go cluster by cluster through the government in order to ensure that you know everything that's in the budget and what we're most excited about to what Mayor Bowser put forth in her Fair Shop budget. So today, we're actually on site, on location, I should say, at Northwest 1. This is actually one of our new communities, and Mayor Bowser was proud to break ground actually during the pandemic on 220 1 to 4 bedroom units, which will contribute to our 36,000 by 2025 goal. So with that, we'll talk about housing a little bit later. I wanted to bring into the conversation Sharon Carney. Sharon serves as the Chief of Staff to the Deputy Mayor for Public, for Economic Development. That's crazy, that's me. Otherwise known as me. I was actually thinking of how do I make that, do I say that whole thing or do I just, anyway, nonetheless. So Sharon, you've been working a lot with district agencies, not just in the DMPED cluster, but across government, in what we call internally we call the district's economic recovery team. And really, one of the processes that we undertook was really getting people's ideas about the economic recovery. So we've got some slides for folks at home to kind of follow through what's in the DMPED budget on economic recovery. Did I get that right? Great. And then in the coming weeks, we'll talk about economic recovery, but also broader budget as well. So why don't you walk us through what's in the DMPED budget for economic recovery, and then we'll bring in some other guests as well.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Deputy Mayor. I'm pleased to be here to talk about the budget. We, as you mentioned, we have been working with agencies all across the DMPED cluster and well beyond for the past year and a half as we've been responding to the pandemic. And the budget development process this year was similarly collaborative. In the DMPED budget, there's four big priorities that we're focused on. The first is housing affordability. As I think everybody knows, we are working very hard to achieve the mayor's housing goals, 36,000 by 2025. And so there is a record-setting investment in that area. The second big priority is food access. So we are very much focused on equity and access in different neighborhoods, and food access is one of those issues that we have been laser focused on. And so there's some pretty exciting investments in that budget that Sarosh Altabal is going to talk about a little bit later. The third big priority area is focusing on some of the businesses and the sectors that have been hard hit by the pandemic. And so that includes supporting our small businesses, as well as our hospitality and entertainment sector, which has faced, as we all know, a lot of restrictions due to operating and public health safety. And then the last big area is growth. And sorry about that.
It's okay.
Lovely breezy day. The last big area is growth. And so we know that some areas, some employment centers in the city have really been hit hard by changes in how we're operating. We've got a lot of people teleworking. And so our big economic engine, our downtown, it looks really different lately. And so we have some initiatives, some investments that are focused on restoring the vibrancy of downtown and other employment centers and really restarting our growth engine, because we know that the revenue that businesses bring in is really critical to supporting social services and housing and all the other things that make our city a strong place for residents.
Absolutely. And one of the primary sources of funding, and we'll talk about housing affordability for the Housing Production Trust Fund, is our deed and recordation tax. So when those big buildings downtown transfer because their value is high, that means that money gets put into affordable housing. So not just for the jobs that are so important to make sure our residents have pathways to the middle class, but also the kind of ancillary benefits. You mentioned that it supports our social programs and things like that, but walk us through kind of each of the different investments and which ones that are kind of new or most exciting that you want to highlight for folks.
Well, so I think that we've shared a little bit about the Housing Production Trust Fund investment. This is a record $400 million investment over fiscal years 21 and 22, paired with really critical operating support through the local rent supplement program, project-based vouchers. So Director Donaldson will talk a little bit more about that. That's big, that's exciting. But one that we haven't talked as much about is a bit smaller, but really innovative. It's a pilot program to create accessory apartments. And so this is about $1.5 million that will support homeowners that want to create accessory apartments to both add new housing, but also generate revenue for themselves and build wealth.
So what's an accessory?
So this could be a basement apartment.
Okay.
It could be a garage. And in a lot of neighborhoods, homeowners can create these things by right. But they might need a little bit of upfront cash to help with that. And so we have talked with a lot of stakeholders about this, and we are excited to work with DHCD to pilot it. A couple of other exciting investments, and I don't want to steal anyone's thunder, but we do have in the small business space a new technical assistance and coaching hub. So as we all know, there are a lot of resources out there for small businesses in DC. Sometimes it can be hard to find exactly where they are. And so the hub is sort of a community quarterback for small business coaching and technical assistance. This will be a central place to find what exists, and it'll be a more coordinated effort to make sure that the needs of small businesses line up with the resources that are out there. So those are two exciting new ones. I could go on, of course, but I don't want to take away from anyone else who's following.
I got you. But for folks who are going to follow in the upcoming weeks, we can steal some of their thunder now.
There you go.
So let's talk about getting folks ready for the jobs. So talk a little bit about some of the Learn and Earn programs and kind of the real big resources that have been put towards it by Mayor Bowser.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the big pillars of the Economic Recovery Investment Plan is focused on pathways to prosperity. So this includes workforce development, it includes coaching, so sort of career navigators that can help folks who are looking for work who may need to make a transition to another industry, possibly from an industry that's been a bit hard hit like hospitality to something that is in demand like health. Some career coaches would be available to support those, and that will be complemented by a reskilling fund to provide training and resources to aid those transitions.
So that helps both the individual and the employer. Who applies, or how will that work when this is put in place?
That is a great question, and I think that some of those details still need to be ironed out by the Deputy Mayor's Cluster for Education in partnership with DOES and the WIC. But I think that there are a lot of exciting opportunities that will hopefully align with people looking for work and meet them where they're at.
All right, Sharon. So I usually ask you when we're talking on the phone, what did I miss? So what did I miss so far?
All right. So downtown, we haven't talked too much about that. There is some really exciting work around place. And place, that sounds like a very broad concept, but we know what that is, right? It's how do you experience the city? How do you get around? There are some really important investments in the DDOT budget that will support mobility. So, people walking to places and ensuring that they're safe, people riding bikes in protected bike lanes. There's also some really exciting things around activating streets. So back in 2019, people might remember the open streets on Georgia Avenue. There's funding in the budget to do some of those in every ward around the city, in addition to some recurring street closures like we've done for streeteries. And so that will all help to ensure that people are still coming out and visiting local businesses and enjoying our parks, even if they don't have to come out because they have to work at an office 5 days a week.
And we've heard a lot of people talk about reimagining the public space. This funding actually will help us do exactly that.
Exactly.
Great. So let me do this. I'm going to bring in our folks who are going to talk about housing affordability. So we're excited to talk through that. And then going to bring you back in a little bit to talk a little bit more about restoring downtown vibrancy and really job growth. So we'll come back to Sharon in a little bit. But first, we're going to take on one of our pillars, which is housing affordability. And so, as you know, Mayor Bowser in 2019 worked with our cluster in order to set a goal for 36,000 new units by 2025. So the thought is that if we create more units of housing, it'll help us with housing affordability. There was a study by the CFO's office and Howard University that found that between 2000 and 2018, the district produced about 40,000 units of housing. That meant that new production enabled rents to be 5.8% lower than they would have been without that production. So what we want to do is actually create another 36,000 units, 12,000 of which will be affordable, and do it in half of the time. So with that, I bring in the team that's going to make sure we not just meet, but exceed Mayor Bowser's goal. And so I'll start off with Sarosha Palwala, who's the Director of Real Estate for DMPED, Andrew Trueblood, Director of Planning, Office of Planning, Polly Donaldson, who I sometimes get her title wrong because she springs up from her chair. She's the Director of the Department of Housing and Community Development, and then Christopher Donald, who is the Director, Executive Director? What do you go by? Executive Director? Director? Christopher Donald of the DC Housing Finance Agency. So all of these team members work together in order to make sure that the mayor's goal is something that we all work on together to reach with our neighbors. So I'm going to go to Sarosh first, just talk to us a little about what he's most excited about in this budget, including where we are right now.
I'm Sarosh Palwala, the Director of Real Estate at DMPED, and the real estate team is very proud to support the mayor's goal of 36,000 units by 2025. And a number of projects were allocated significant funding in this budget. Since 2015, DMPED has completed 36 projects totaling over 4,500 units of housing, including over 1,600 deeply affordable units. So we are excited for the Fair Shot DC Economic Recovery and Investment Plan to help us accelerate the momentum. In addition to housing, these projects also catalyze a lot of different amenities, including fresh food, grocery, sit-down restaurants and pharmacies, and we appreciate the opportunity to provide vibrancy to these neighborhoods, to add to the vibrancy for these neighborhoods. So I wanted to highlight a couple of projects that are in the mayor's budget this year, including Hill East, which is a tremendous project for Ward 7. This is a multi-parcel, multi-phase site, and it was previously known as Reservation 13, and it doesn't have any infrastructure. So the district needs to invest in the wet and dry utilities so that we can maximize the affordable housing that's on the site. The next phase of Hill East will produce almost 2,000 units along with multiple food and retail amenities. Next, of course, we're in front of Northwest 1, which we broke ground on last year, and they've been on quite a tear ever since. As you can see, they're doing really well.
Tear in a good way.
A tear in a good way, yeah, like moving very quickly. The first phase will deliver over 200 units, and we are targeting closing on the second phase in 2022. You'll see the money in the budget, which will provide another 200 units. The mayor's Fair Shot budget will support returning residents to the site of the first new communities project. This is the first new communities project. Continuing of the Housing Authority, both Barry Farm and Park Morton saw an increase in funding from prior year's budget, and we are committed to providing safe and affordable and high quality public housing, which both of those projects will provide. St. Elizabeth is another project that was substantially budgeted. That is also moving along at quite a clip. Mayor Bowser invested in the entertainment and sports arena, which is the home to the world champion Washington Mystics. And we have completed over 200 fully leased, 80% affordable apartment units. And we broke ground just this year on 88 new townhomes. And this continued investment will provide for a state-of-the-art $300 million hospital and another 700 units at the site. So, wow, a lot going on with St. Elizabeth and Ward 8. The next project is Mcmillan, which will produce another 600 units of housing, including home ownership units, plus a grocery store, countless retail amenities, preservation and adaptive reuse of historic assets, a new 6-acre park, and expanded facilities for the world-renowned Children's National Medical Center. So this is a multifaceted, multi-purpose community asset. Finally, we have one of our newer projects, 1600 U Street, which is also known as the MPD 3rd District and Engine 9. And this project, while still conceptual, could produce new public facilities as well as hundreds of units of housing. So we are very excited with these investments to play a part in fulfilling the mayor's housing goals.
Great. And thank you, Sarosh, for that. Andrew Trueblood is up next. Andrew, we were going to talk a little bit about the budget, right, today, but also comprehensive plan. So can't go without mentioning that. Sarosh just mentioned one site that was actually upflummed. His last site he just mentioned, 1600 U Street. So talk to us about what the comprehensive plan means to this budget, and then like specific projects like what might happen at 1600 U Street, how that's advanced thanks to Councilmember Nadeau's support.
Certainly. Thanks, Deputy Mayor, for using the word upflum. I appreciate you starting with that. But I think the point, really, what upflum means, for those who don't know, means we're creating additional density in our future land use map. It allows us to ensure that we can build more housing. We know the mayor has set a goal of 36,000 housing units. And to do that, in many places, we need more housing and more density. And you mentioned the comprehensive plan, which was just approved by council a few weeks ago, will unlock, we think, about 15% more development capacity. And a great example is U Street, both at the MPD headquarters, but also Reeves. There's additional density there. There's also additional housing opportunities all along high opportunity corridors, such as Wisconsin Avenue and Connecticut Avenue. And that's where the mayor's budget, the Her Fair Shot budget, follows up on the work of the comp plan to invest in planning efforts, both along Wisconsin and Connecticut, to make sure that we can build more housing there and more affordable housing, as well as we're excited by additional opportunities along New York Avenue, really rethinking that corridor beyond just transportation and just beyond cars, but also how do we connect those neighborhoods together along that corridor? How do we improve multimodal transportation? And so there's funding in there for a vision framework to begin thinking about that.
Great. And you mentioned that corridor, you mentioned upflumming, you mentioned density. All that sometimes seems a little bit scary because it leads to a little bit of the unknown. So talk to us about the community engagement that happens after the comprehensive plan and how the budget helps with that.
Thank you. It's actually, community engagement has been built into the comprehensive plan. I would say it's probably the most kind of outreach that has been done for a plan, both by the mayor and the Office of Planning, but also council. So it has been approved at every level by the mayor, by the council. ANCs have all weighed in. So that really helped help guide where we did think there would be opportunities for upflumming. And as you mentioned, for example, Councilmember Nadeau weighed in on more density. Councilmember Shea weighed in on Upper Wisconsin Avenue for more density too. But we recognize that that's high level, that's very broad, and that these plans, the purpose of them is to really delve in deeper with the community, with stakeholders, and determine how best to build more housing. And that might be through design guidelines, that might be through various analyses. So that's what we're excited to do in these particular areas.
And so nothing changes right away because of the comprehensive plan, or how does that work?
So the comprehensive plan just sets out the goals and the framework under which our land use works. It is not zoning, and zoning is actually run in the district by the Independent Zoning Commission. It's a little complicated, but zoning cannot be inconsistent with the comp plan. In other words, it has to be consistent with the comp plan. So the comp plan sets out the high level goals and opportunities and really the limits, but then individual zoning has to be done by the zoning commission. So there is that other step. That will be yet another opportunity for community to weigh in to make sure that we're hitting the goals that we need to hit.
Fantastic. So let's bring in Polly. Polly, you were with Mayor Bowser last Monday when she announced a historic investment. Why don't you take us through that investment and what that means for housing affordability?
All told, since 2015, Mayor Bowser has invested $1 billion in the Housing Production Trust Fund, including her announcement last week of an additional $400 million for FY21 and FY22, our upcoming budget. That's just absolutely unprecedented. What that will do, first off, is allow us to clear our pipeline of some of the projects that have been on a waiting list while we had to endure, as we all did, the pandemic and the tightened belts that we had to face last year in our budget. But now, with help from the federal government as well, we are able to continue our investments in 8 additional projects with over 600 new units of housing to be produced net new. I will say also that the production goals with this 400 million, we should be able to produce approximately 3,300 new units of housing, and that really will make a difference towards helping to achieve the mayor's goal of 12,000 affordable units as part of the 36,000 by 2025. I will also say, though, that preservation of existing affordable housing is as important in that way. And so the mayor's budget this year also has $17 million investment in the preservation fund. As you know, Deputy Mayor, that's a leveraged fund that produces 3 to 1 private funds for every public dollar. So really, it's a great investment on the part of, for the residents of the district to preserve our existing affordable housing as well. I'd be happy to talk about other initiatives. There's a lot of housing money in this budget, which I'm delighted by. And I know that it's really terrific to be here surrounded by some of the investments that we have made over the years, whether it's the Severna on K, whether it's Northwest One, whether it's North Capitol Commons. And of course, we don't do it alone. We do it in conjunction with DMPED, with the Office of Planning, and of course, with the Housing Finance Agency as well.
All right. And so part of the 36,000 by 2025 goal was actually to set 12,000, or for us to achieve 12,000 affordable units by 2025 as well, including making us the first jurisdiction in the country to have affordable housing goals by neighborhood. So how does the $400 million investment help us advance affordable housing in high opportunity neighborhoods?
Well, it provides us with some resources where we can offer under a competitive bid process, the ability to invest in neighborhoods where there has not been affordable housing. And in addition, because of the investment the mayor is doing in the local rent supplement program, we will be able to meet the statutory and the goal that the mayor has set of 50% of the fund going towards the lowest and most needy income group here in the district. So this is really building housing across the income spectrum and really looking at opportunities to go into areas such as where Director Trupa was talking, Wisconsin Avenue, Connecticut Avenue, and really looking at the opportunities to build more affordable housing in those areas as well.
So I'm going to leave the easy task to Chris to explain how you finance affordable housing. So Polly mentioned a couple of the tools. She mentioned Housing Production Trust Fund. She mentioned the local rent supplement program. But then you have some tools that are unique to the Housing Finance Agency. Talk to us about how those tools get coupled with what Polly just mentioned in order for us to get this housing achieved.
Sure. So the secret sauce is I just do whatever Polly tells me. That's the way we start off. But what happens is for every dollar that she takes, we leverage about 3. So if we've got the $400 million that the mayor has just put out, then we have another $1.2 billion in bonds that will also be a part of that overall funding package. And so we're really excited about that. With that capital, we're able to issue a more efficient form of capital, meaning cheaper, right? So that means we get more leverage on these projects which need a lot of capital to be pulled off. One of the ways that we do that is with our risk share program. And so with that risk share program, we're essentially just like a private MAP lender, a lender that issues FHA insured debt. And so we're able to bring competitive pricing to lending using that tool. One of the other neat things that we've been able to do consistent with the mayor's goals and objective around home ownership is through our HIP platform, our housing investments platform, where we've been creating some workforce housing that's more infill. And so we've been targeting incomes between about $80,000 to $120,000 and really focused on creating equity in that space in the market, right? Making sure that we can retain residents and households who would normally go somewhere else to buy housing because of the housing costs, but keeping them here in the district with affordable housing at that income level.
And so, Polly, Housing Production Trust Fund, the ranges of the incomes for that, and then Chris, because Chris just mentioned a bit of a higher range for workforce housing.
Sure. Well, the Housing Production Trust Fund has basically 3 different buckets, income level buckets that it is working to address, meaning for our most vulnerable and lowest income families to ensure that they have a safe and affordable housing. So that about half the fund goes towards those who are making, say, $35,000 a year or less, and that is the one major bucket. And then we do look, though, at the moderate income, those frequently working families who are not getting a subsidy but are able to and want to be able to live in the city and partake of all of the amenities and the resources here. And so that's another 40% of the fund goes towards those at the moderate income level. And then we do have 10% of the funds that do go towards and above at some of our upper moderate income folks, and that we can work in conjunction with Director Donald on.
And so I'll throw this out there. A lot of, the mayor is really keen on home ownership, and a lot of the council members have been talking about that too. What programs do your agencies have in place for home ownership?
Well, we work together on that as well. DHCD is the principal administrator of the Home Purchase Assistance Program, which is a down payment assistance program funded by appropriation each year. That also has an element that provides for district employees to be able to purchase homes as well through the Employee Assisted Housing Program. HFA is one of our administrators. They are the ones that folks go to apply to become homeowners. You have your own home ownership program as well, Open Doors, but we work in conjunction on that, as well as with the Greater Washington Urban League. So Chris, you want to talk about?
Yeah, Open Doors. Yeah.
So it's been really interesting given the interest rate environment. We've seen the pace of Open Doors pick up. So we're doing about 70 loans a month, which is probably 3 times higher than what we typically do. So it's been really exciting to continue to contribute to home ownership in that way. There is a down payment assistance program with Open Doors, which can go above our HPAP limits, but we work really by bringing all those resources together in kind of a tapestry to find out how we can serve all along that spectrum and make sure that if people want to buy, they want it to be affordable, that they can stay here in the district. Holly, let's not forget, we're actually working on a really cool deal where we got a disposition from you at West Street. That's going to produce about 8 middle income homes, home ownership. And then I think we have the Gale site, which was a DMPED site, which we are putting about 4 condos on that site. And then we're working on some other opportunities. So we're really excited about taking excess land from the district and making people homeowners using that.
All right. So if you are watching right now and you're interested in buying a home, where do you start? What's the best place to start?
The best place to start is with our network of community-based organizations that provide the housing counseling and where you make your initial application. You can go to dhcd.dc.gov and click on home ownership, and you will find the list of organizations where you can begin that application process. And then you work with either the Housing Finance Agency or the Greater Washington Urban League to make that happen. So you can sign up and get pre-qualified and be able to look then in the market for your house.
You can always come to our website, www.dchfa.org. It has a listing of all the different programs that we participate in and get involved that way.
Great. And those units that you talked about that are between that 80 and 120%, maybe some DC government employees
Absolutely.
Are watching?
We've actually been very excited to do both DC government employees, and that includes firefighters, that includes police officers, folks, again, who would typically be priced out, who are now able to stay in the district. So that's been really exciting.
Well, we could spend the whole show talking about housing. We could. But we've got some folks who want to talk about equity and food access, another important topic. So thank you, Polly and Chris, for joining us today. And then, Sarosh, we're at a new community site. Tell us about New Communities Initiative and how we're moving the needle on those sites around the district.
So we are at the first new community site, actually Northwest 1, and there are 3 other sites, pardon me, Park Morton, Barry Farm, and then Lincoln Heights Richardson Dwellings. And actually under this administration, we've actually been able to move all 4 projects forward. Barry Farm, we are actually working on the infrastructure right now, so it's underway. Park Morton, we would like to close on that this year. A few years ago, as you recall, we went out and we selected Bruce Monroe to be the build first site for the Park Morton project. And we went through a zoning process there, and that process actually was held up in appeals but we returned to the zoning commission. We're moving forward with that process. And so we'd like to see both sites both sides provide residence for people to return to. And then finally, with Lincoln Heights Richardson Dwellings, we are continuing to work with the Housing Authority on how to best situate that site. But in the meantime, we have built, I want to say, over 250 build first units at 5201 Hay Street, Providence Place, and of course the residences at the Strand, which will be opening this year. So we're very excited about that.
And we also know that this year we actually, in the budget, Mayor Bowser laid out specific commitments for each site. So for Park Morton, 14.8 million, for Barry Farm, 22 million, and for Northwest One, where we are today, $20 million for each of those sites. But you also mentioned Lincoln Heights Richardson Dwelling. That's furthest along in terms of the replacement or the on-site housing?
Well, that's further along in terms of, the way New Communities works is that we build what's known as build first units offsite in order to ensure that people don't have to leave the neighborhoods in which they lived. And at the same time, we can then work on the project that's actually on the actual physical site, the Housing Authority site. So with Lincoln Heights Richardson Dwellings, as I mentioned, we've built 3 or 4 properties. And then, as you mentioned, with Park Morton, we've actually also built with Park Morton 2 or 3 communities. Those were built in previous years. And so the intention of Bruce Monroe was to be able to do basically half of the units in a very short radius from the actual Park Morton site, and then the remainder of units would be on Park Morton. And we'll just reverse that process and ensure that people, overall we want to minimize displacement. That's the goal, is minimizing displacement and ensuring that people can return to their homes as soon as possible.
And I brought up Lincoln Heights Richardson Dwelling because there's also going to be some retail there. And Svangloy Cook, who's our Director of Business Development, joins us as well. And Svangloy, you've just been pushing out some grants over the course of the last year. But one of the projects, and working together, so this is where kind of, at least among DMPED itself, where we support one another. So Sarosh talked about the housing that was being developed, and at the Strand Theater, we used a tool, the Neighborhood Prosperity Fund. So talk to us about some of the current programs, and then we'll talk about some of the new investments in the budget.
Correct. So as the Deputy Mayor alluded to, the one of the grants programs that we have is the Neighborhood Prosperity Fund. And that's an investment fund to support development projects that are in neighborhoods that we are really prioritizing investment, and particularly where investments are slow to come. And so one of those is definitely the one that the Mayor mentioned, off of Nan and Helen Burroughs. There are others on in Ward 8, which is a grocer, a good food market, and how do we continue to advance those type of development projects that create jobs, offer retail experiences for residents in those communities as well. So we're really excited about advancing and continuing that work. That's been going on for the last 4 years now, and so we have quite a few projects in the pipeline. In addition to Neighborhood Prosperity Fund, something that we piloted this year was also light manufacturing, creating an opportunity for businesses who are looking to manufacture and distribute. And how do we, kind of advance those opportunities for small businesses as well? That was just rolled out recently. If you paid attention to one of our recovery check-ins, you saw those recipients, and they were very excited about the opportunity to now to go into manufacturing and supporting other small businesses as well. In addition to that, the other biggest thing that we're really excited about is how we increase food access. And so we have a fund called the DC Nourish Fund, and this was rolled out as well. We have identified a vendor that is going to be the operator to support fresh food access, similar to some existing businesses, Fresh Food Factory on MLK, also with Foods on in Ward 8 as well. And how do we continue to increase the opportunities to invest in small businesses who will have a food access opportunity or a retail experience that they want to create? And so the DC Nourish program is designed for that purpose in mind.
So who wants to talk about the new investments in the budget? Sharon Svangley.
Everybody does.
Everybody does. You want to kick us off with the big $57 million investment?
So I'm going to kick it to Sarosh to talk
Right.
57 million, and then I will jump onto the policy side of that.
Fantastic.
Fantastic. Well, I'm happy to talk about that. The mayor has been committed to addressing the inequitable access to food, fresh, healthy, and affordable food, because food access really impacts the lives of our residents. The district had previously set out a sustainable DC goal to ensure that 75% of low-income residents live within a quarter mile of a full-service grocery store, and yet approximately 80,000 residents live more than a mile from a grocery store east of the river. So DMPED is committed to delivering on the mayor's objective of filling this void with a more aggressive and targeted approach to secure grocery stores, brick and mortar fresh food markets within a mile for all of the residents by 2024. So the DMPED real estate team worked with our business development colleagues and worked with the OP food policy team, and we engaged retailers and residents, community organizations, and property owners to develop a grant program that focused on three main areas of concern: rising construction costs, rent subsidies, and security. So this new food access fund will expand upon the successes of the Neighborhood Prosperity Fund by providing $58 million in capital investment to accelerate the delivery of small, medium, and large grocery stores and sit-down restaurants in Ward 7 and Ward 8.
Great. And that's on top of a commitment to a TIF. And for folks who don't know, a TIF, want to walk us through that and what that means to the intersection of Minnesota and Benning?
Yeah, correct. So this is on top of all of our other tools that we use. And so one of the tools that DMPED primarily uses is called a TIF. It's a tax increment financing. And basically what that does is it enables the district to access funds that are created by the increase in tax property values through the course of a development. So for instance, if a development is not developed, then the property tax would be, say, $10 a square foot. And after it's developed, it might be $20. So that delta, that $10 delta, can then be used to finance certain improvements and community benefits. So the one that the deputy mayor mentioned is called Northeast Heights, and we are allocating TIF financing in order to enable a new grocery store, other amenities at the shopping center, as well as housing and affordable housing as well. So they're really exciting tools, but this food access fund is in addition to that.
So that's a $58 million fund. And Sharon, you want to walk us through some of the other policy initiatives that we have for food access?
Yes. So as you know, the mayor has proposed a budget, but there is also the Budget Support Act, which includes some policies that support implementation of the budget. And so another one of the tools that we use to attract grocers is the supermarket tax credit. This has been around for a while. And fortunately, in the 20 or so years it's been on the books, new grocers have come to the district, as we've talked about. And so we have proposed in the Budget Support Act to adjust the boundaries of the supermarket tax credit. It would be boundaries based on a couple different eligibility criteria, a definition from the USDA around areas that have low access to grocery stores. So places where 33% of residents are further than a half mile from a grocery store, as well as places where more than 20% of the population participates in SNAP. And then the third option is places that are designated as opportunity zones, which by definition have poverty levels that are well above average, as well as median household incomes that are well below average. So this is a really important tool that we want to keep on the books, but we want to make sure that it's really well targeted to the places that need it most. And so what that'll do is make some additional areas in wards 5, 7, and 8 eligible for the tax credit, and remove a few areas in wards 1, 4, 6, and other places where food access is fortunately no longer as much of a challenge as it once was.
And Andrew, you've been working on food policy because the Food Policy Council sits in the Office of Planning. Talk to us about their work and how that fits into what the mayor's proposed in the budget.
So the Food Policy Council has been working on many of these issues and thinking about these issues of food access and fresh food access. And I think the mayor's budget makes strides towards that, both what Sarosh and Sabangle mentioned. I'll just add the Norse Dc Fund, which was funded initially this year. The mayor puts an additional $500,000, proposes an additional $500,000 towards that. And what it does is it supports community financial institutions to support local food-oriented businesses. So these could be small markets that want to become bigger markets and want to take advantage of some of the funding or supermarket tax credits or other food-based businesses. But the idea is that you can help both increase food access and support local businesses and local entrepreneurs at the same time.
And so this is a new approach that we're just starting. We just kicked off this year. What kind of businesses, you mentioned, if you wanted to expand or if you wanted to start one, what should people look for? How should they get started in this enterprise?
Well, actually, Sabangle mentioned a few types of businesses like markets and others. I think you can learn more actually at DMPED's website, DMPED.dc.gov. But also, you can work with our partner, Capital Impact Partners, who is really leading that effort. They make sure that businesses, what we've seen is sometimes it's capital, sometimes it's technical assistance, sometimes it's assistance finding a real estate opportunity. And so Capital Impact Partners is that partner that can really help an organization navigate what they need, because in each place we've seen that those food providers might have different challenges.
Great. I see Sabangle shaking her head. Sabangle, when you talk to folks who are interested in working in food and making sure that they have more healthy options for their neighbors, where do you kind of point them first? And which of these resources do you think will kind of propel us furthest?
Are you talking about for business?
Yeah, for the business. Yeah.
I think to add on to what Andrew mentioned is that what's unique about Norse DC is that it's a full circle kind of service to empower businesses to ascend to greatness based on what their success, whatever they define success to be for their business, particularly related to food access entities. And so what I like about it is that it's not just financial. It could be all kinds of other technical assistance for those businesses, and being able to monitor that and track the growth. And so I think that's what's really impactful and important about the Norse DC Fund. It is not just about giving you capital dollars or anything like that. It's tending to all of your needs and customizing a plan for that.
Great. Well, I really want to thank this panel for joining us to talk about the mayor's investments in food access. One of the things that she's tasked DMPED with is making sure that they think about how in Ward 7 and 8 that we find new ways to bring retailers who are west of the river, east of the river, and also for those who are already operating east of the river, how they can expand or grow their businesses east of the river, really in an effort to support our small businesses. And so, as you know, throughout the pandemic, jobs were something that we really were concerned about. We saw that we lost nearly 70,000 jobs, and the great majority of those jobs were in the hospitality sector. So next, we've got Sabangle Cook back with us again, as she has been, and Christy Whitfield, the director of this Department of Small Local Business Development.
Hello.
Thanks for being here, Christy, to talk about how we support small businesses as well as the hospitality sector. So why don't you guys talk a little bit about what you're most excited about with the new investments in Mayor Bowser's Fair Shop budget for our businesses?
Sure. Well, I think, we know this has been a crazy year for businesses, for all of us, and for businesses in particular from the Department of Small and Local Businesses perspective. I'm really excited about what Mayor Bowser has continued to keep into the budget, which is, the great work that DMPED and DSLBD has been doing. So our main streets will be funded to be able to give, TA and training and technical assistance that we rely on. Mayor Bowser has doubled the number of main streets under her tenure here to be able to really provide that hands-on training and technical assistance. And then, I think that being able to continue these kinds of things that happen that our businesses need. But I think that, we know that with that training and technical assistance, we've seen our businesses struggle, and we've seen that they need access. They need access to help and training and technical assistance. And Mayor Bowser has put a technical assistance hub in this budget. And DSLBD is really excited because we know that when we support our businesses take off. And so the Training and Technical Assistance Hub is one of the things that I'm most excited about in this budget, because it's going to be, I think, when Sharon and I were talking about it, the quarterback of all the training and technical assistance, where we can really help people go to one place to find the type of training and technical assistance, an online resource where they can comb through the types of help they need, but then also go to the specific types of support you need and then get that support. And then also really help our training and technical assistance providers to get their resources to the businesses. So that's one of the things I'm really excited about. I'm really excited about the different types of relief of the various fees. I mean, I know our businesses, so I was a former small business, so anytime there's a relief of a fee, I'm excited. So thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Mayor Bowser, for thinking about relief of fees. We know that when we are trying to activate the spaces, and we're going to be, talk about that a little bit more, but whenever we can really, relief of fees is the same as putting money into the pocket of a small business. And so, helping relieve the fees and helping to streamline the way that the agencies work to make things work more smoothly for the businesses, that is a huge win for small business. The expansion of the Shop the District resource is going to be another really great thing for our small businesses, because when you can find the business that you want, and you can break out of some old habits maybe of clicking, I won't say what websites some of us might shop on by habit, but I would say that the Shop the District will have those resources where you can support local businesses, and those local businesses can support you and get you the resources and the products that you need right to your home. I think the continuation, and I started with continuation, but let me go back. Mayor Bowser has expanded and continued the Aspire program, which is the business development for our returning citizens, and DSLBD is elated to be able to continue to provide that resource for our returning citizens. It's one of I'm not supposed to have favorites, so I don't officially have favorites, but I am deeply grateful that Mayor Bowser has continued that program in the as part of the DSLBD budget. And also the DREAM grants, which are grants for small business owners east of the river. Mayor Bowser included those grants in this upcoming fiscal year's budget. And I think when you are a small business and you need just a little bit of help getting your business started, we know that we do not have enough businesses represented east of the river, and Mayor Bowser has done this several years in a row, and it has been a tremendously successful program. So being able to continue the DREAM grants is something that we are really, really excited about. I could go on and on, but I will give Savangale a chance. I'm sure you're excited about a few things too, Savangale.
Attract visitors to DC. That means conferences, tourism, events, and the like. And so when we're thinking about hospitality and tourism, that's one of the big things that we have to, prioritize. And in prioritizing that, you'll see that there are several significant investments that are being placed in that. One is marketing and advertising, and really an intentional focus on how we brand this city to bring people here, bring people back, and advertise how amazing this district is. And so that's one thing. And so you'll notice that in the budget, there's a $900,000 investment to GoGo here, which is fantastic. I think we're all very, very elated and excited about that. Our agency, OCTFME, Director Angie Gates, they've been pushing this, and so we're really excited that this is in the budget. Also thinking about other unique activations and events. We are also investing $8 million, a bridge fund specific to art venues. And so we're really excited about continuing to advance and investing into our businesses here and the venues here. In addition to that, we're thinking about how we also invest in our business improvement districts so that we can continue to capture more tourists here to the area, and also preserve the culture, the cultural experiences that you'll have, regardless of what neighborhood you're in. And so we want to make sure that we create these cultural and unique experiences here. And so that's one of the ways that we're really thinking about how we invest in the hospitality and tourism industry. And so with these two significant things in play, that indirectly will also help us create more jobs. That means our hotels are booked because we've gotten people excited to come here. That means conventions take place. That means restaurants are full. That means there's great things happening out in the city, on the streets, in the neighborhoods. And so as we think about hospitality and tourism, this is how we're approaching how we're going to invest in our city so that we can come back with a vengeance and grow and continue to thrive.
So, Christy, I'm not going to put you on the spot to ask you your favorite program, but Technical Assistance Hub is new, right? So, council members may have questions about how this is going to help our businesses. What would you say is kind of the 60-second elevator pitch for why a Technical Assistance Hub is important, especially now as we come out of such a really dramatically different business environment?
To the council members that are listening, Mayor Bowser put this in there because she understands that a lot of people want to help our small businesses and they don't always know how to coordinate those resources. And we want to make sure that businesses are able to comb through the resources that are available and that resources are not being duplicated. We don't want 6 people offering resource A and nobody offering resource B or C or D. And so if we can make sure that we are able to coalesce the types of resources that are available, we can then make sure that businesses are able to get the panoply of resources that they need. We want to be able to make sure businesses can't just get the introductory types of things, but also the secondary and tertiary types of resources that they need to be able to continue to grow. You know, technical assistance isn't just one thing. And it's not just one type of business that we're trying to help grow here. We have a really diverse business environment, and we need to be able to fertilize that ground in a variety of ways. And so the Technical Assistance Hub has to be able to speak to that in a multitude of layers. So the thing that's important about this is being able to comb through those things and then be able to assess the landscape and then actually help that landscape grow so that our businesses can grow and respond accordingly.
I think if I could add one other thing is that I think it's important as we've learned over the last 15 months is that when you think about technical assistance, it's highly specialized. No one business is looking for, the same thing. And so we do need to, we want to acknowledge the fact that businesses all need something slightly different. And so customizing it and meeting the need of the individual business is necessary, as we've learned, rolling out a variety of grants over the last 13 months is that, how do we help these individuals better put them in a position to yield the kind of outcome investments that they're looking for, being loan ready, grant ready, for anything that
bond ready.
Bond ready, exactly. And so it's really important that this is the step before applying for the opportunities that we're preparing to roll out.
And I think throughout the course of this, Mayor Bowser has talked about relief, recovery, and then growth, right? So relief, we have to give people something to survive. Recovery, got to get back to where we were in terms of jobs, in terms of businesses, and then growth, that we actually add more jobs to the district's economy. So I think the technical assistance, why it's so important is because the relief side of it, whether it's the district government, hopefully Sabangle and Christie won't have another year where you have to process $155 million in grants in such a short time without more staff. But that phase of where we are and what happens with federal relief, we're probably getting past that phase, right? So as we come out of that phase, we need folks to think about how they recover and how they grow using tools that are out there. And it's hard to navigate that without the Technical Assistance Hub. So I hope that this is, it's a new initiative. Sometimes that's hard to get our arms around and make sure it survives a budget, but it really does allow us to make sure that businesses can be self-sustaining and find the resources themselves.
Well, and also technical assistance means a lot of things to a lot of people. So to some people, it means learning how to read a P&L. And for somebody else, it means getting ready to prepare a grant agreement or a pitch competition or a pitch statement. I mean, I think technical assistance means help. And it means help in whatever way that you need it. And so I think demystifying what it means and then helping people take that step is what this hub is going to be all about.
And I'm going to ask Sharon and maybe Andrew to come back up because we have a really short amount of time, but wanted to talk a little bit about downtown. So Christy, why don't you stick with us and we'll just have Andrew and Sharon join us and we'll share some microphones. Because what we wanted to talk about was downtown vibrancy and how we get back to it. So we've got a couple of tools for that in the budget. Spongler, I don't know if you want to kick us off on that. And then maybe what we could do is hear from Sharon about what we're doing for some individual bids about some exciting projects that Mayor Bowser's funded this year. So you want to kick us off, Spongler?
Sure, absolutely. So we have what we've been calling the Next Generation Industry Promotion Fund. It is a $32 million fund over the life of 4 years, and it's specifically designed really to enhance our competitiveness here in the district compared to our neighboring jurisdictions and just across the country, period. And how do we bring and attract new tenants to the city? And so as we and prioritizing mainly workforce, and how we create jobs, how do we retain those jobs? And then also thinking about how do we, offer upskilling opportunities as well as we're talking to different employers and tenants to come here to DC. And so one of the major things that we're doing, which we're really excited about, is now we're increasing our competitiveness in attracting more tenants here to DC. In addition to, having this opportunity, this large fund to attract new tenants, that also means that we need to think about how do we retool internally ourselves, even with our stakeholders as well that work with us in attracting tenants. And so infrastructure is included in that as well, which includes, how do we reorg, how do we think about the kind of talent that we need on the teams to continue to attract in a more intense and more directed way, especially when we're looking at trying to attract those high growth kinds of tenants here and diversify our ecosystem here that is DC. I think the other thing that I wanted to flag was also there is a $4 million investment in our business improvement districts. And those investments, again, are designed to help attract tenants specifically in their neighboring boundaries as well, and prioritizing very specific sectors and industries. And so really excited about this Next Generation Industry Promotion Fund, because it's really going to help us be even more competitive than we already are, as we really want to hit the ground running moving forward in fiscal year 22 and 4 years beyond, as we prioritize how we attract more high growth companies here to the city.
And Subangway, so one of the commitments the mayor made us make to her, and we make, of course, to the council, is that by investing in bringing these jobs to DC, we're going to make sure that they go to DC residents as well.
Absolutely, all day long. Absolutely.
And we'll talk more to the council about that, but ensuring that there's real commitments to hire DC residents.
Yes, sir. Having a lot of teeth. Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Great. And Sharon, for folks who don't know, where's the Golden Triangle bid, Southwest bid, and I guess the Anacostia one? Those are easy for where those are. But tell us about the three investments. And Golden Triangle, actually, you might have to say where that one is.
Yes. So there the $14 million placemaking and recovery and vibrancy fund includes a $6 million investment for the Anacostia bid to do some tourism and development of a cultural and arts district. Then there's $4 million for the Southwest bid to do some work around autonomous vehicles and tourism and placemaking. And then there is the $4 million for the Golden Triangle bid to support, as Sabungli mentioned, some of their efforts around building an innovation district and really starting to attract high growth companies in the area just north of Pennsylvania Avenue. And they've assembled a pretty impressive coalition of partners, including GW University and others who are thinking through what that might look like.
And if you think about downtown and you think about west of 16th Street, that's where the Golden Triangle bid is. So we really need to make sure that we invest there so that there are jobs to support the small businesses, but also to kick off tax revenue to help us with all of the different programs that we have throughout the city.
That's right. And this is also one of the areas where we've seen commercial vacancy really soar. This was a challenge before COVID, of course, but with some of the changes in working patterns, it's gotten a bit more, it's been increased. And so this is something that will help fill offices and hopefully help our bottom line.
By putting local businesses in these locations that are vacant, we know we are, one, helping the tax revenue for the district, but then also we know our local businesses are more likely to hire local residents. And we have a lot of exciting things planned for this summer in that regard in many of those bids.
And I know the Mayor's Office of Nightlife and Culture is going to help on one of those pilot programs.
Yes, I think in more than one of those programs.
Fantastic.
Shout out to Mayor's Office of Nightlife and Culture.
Great. Andrew, anything to add on how we bring back downtown? Maybe get Christie's mic on. Okay, great.
Not working? Okay, great. Yeah, I think the point of increasing or decreasing commercial vacancy, increasing the vibrance downtown, we have some lessons that we've actually learned from COVID. And that's the idea that our streets can be for more than just moving cars and parking cars, but they can be for people too. We've seen incredible value in the streeteries and in closing down parts of streets or temporary closing streets to create places for people to be. And so there's almost over $10 million of funding in the mayor's budget around closing off streets regularly. Black Lives Matter is another good example, Black Lives Matter Plaza. And we think some of these places, especially downtown, can help really revitalize that area and make it a place that people want to be either during the workday or after the workday. So we're excited about that. We also have, the mayor has proposed funds to support festivals, as well as open streets events where we close down streets for a weekend across all 8 wards, as well as a major signature open streets event that will close down 7th Street from Florida Avenue all the way down to the wharf and have a big festival there. So a lot of great investments. I'll finally just say there's also money for the District Department of Transportation on capital regarding, for example, it's called the DuPont Circle Crown, but decking over Connecticut Avenue, the K Street Transitway, which will create an amazing, not only transitway, but places across K Street in downtown, and other bike and transit improvements.
So I know we've run over time, but there's been a lot to talk about, and there's a lot of great initiatives. So what is, Sumangle, your favorite one to close us out?
Oh, my favorite, I don't know, all of them. Can I say that? Is that fair? I mean, literally all of them, they're all interconnected. And so picking one would be a disservice. I kind of feel like they're all interconnected in a way that allows us to advance, and we can create the city that we're all looking forward to restoring and stabilizing and continuing to invest and grow. So I kind of feel like my favorite is all of them because they're all interconnected.
I love it. I think I'm going to get the same answer from everybody. So we may just hold it there. I do think that the Food Access Fund is a real interesting one because we talk a lot about advancing equity. This is an opportunity for us really to move the needle. So we've talked about a lot today. We've gone through a lot of numbers, and we really want you to talk about what you want to see in the budget and how you want to make sure that these programs survive. So what you want to do is go to budget.dc.gov. So if you go to budget.dc.gov, that's where you can find a list of all these initiatives in Mayor Bowser's Fair Shop budget. And what happens next is the council will have hearings about the budget and hear from residents and other stakeholders to talk about what's important to them. And then we'll also have an opportunity for us, for DC government, our leadership, to go before the council and talk about these programs and say why they're important. So we need you to stay engaged. What we'll do each Tuesday is have a different cluster and a different deputy mayor up here talking about what they are most excited about in the mayor's budget. But it's really important that if you like what you've heard today, and I hope everybody's liked what they've heard today, that you really talk to council members about why these initiatives are important. So learn more about them at budget.dc.gov. Thanks for joining us today. Be sure to stay safe and keep in touch. We'll see you next Tuesday.